I'm Angela, and I started coming to Motion Church 2 years ago when I was going through a really dark time in my life. My husband came home one day and told me that he wanted a divorce, and I was devastated because I thought that I would be married for the rest of my life to him, and it was such a sad time that I was looking for something because I didn't want to stay stuck in that darkness. And I had grew up in a church, but I had fallen away from God, and I wasn't following God. He wasn't first in my life. But I found out about divorce care pretty quickly. And I started going to divorce care, and one of the co-leaders of divorce care invited me to Motion Church, and that was the light in the dark. So that small group, in addition to coming to church, was amazing. That first night that I came to church 2 years ago, Pastor Roger spoke a message that just spoke to my soul. And I raised my hand that night in church, and I gave my life back to the Lord. And it began a long, painful journey of 2 years of really just trying to fight through those sad, dark times. But it's been worth it. And this church has changed my life. I love this place. I love coming to Motion. It's like my revitalization every week, you know? I love the worship. I love all of our pastors, so many great people. And now I'm actually a leader of divorce care for kids. I am serving children, loving them through the pain and the darkness in their journey. But it's really amazing to see how I've not only changed, but how I can help change others. So, I would encourage somebody who's going through a tough time to spend time with God. Every day I pray, I meditate, and I talk to God. And about a month ago, I actually met an amazing man. He's awesome, and it's really cool to see my life on the other side of the journey, when I didn't know where the light was going to come from. But God and this church have been so amazing and such a huge part of my journey. I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for Motion Church. And I'm just forever grateful and thankful for that. After I'd been coming to church for probably about 6 months, I was baptized, and that water baptism that I'd never had previously in my life was again, kind of just the next step or the next part of my journey in that chapter. So I just feel like if I could encourage people to give and to trust in God, that whether it's immediate or it's 2 years or 9 years, God will always bless us for putting Him first and for being obedient and for serving Him. I always encourage people to give to the Lord, because it's one of the ways that we can make a bigger difference or have a huge impact in the community, and to bring more people to God and to Christ, and to make sure that they get to heaven. So I'm very, very passionate about giving to the house and to God. I am so excited to be part of Motion Church. I absolutely love it, and what we're currently doing in Puyallup and on South Hill, but even the future for Bonney Lake campus. That is very exciting to see that growth and all those people on the hill come to the Lord. So I'm just happy to be here.
Come on, hey. Let's give it up for Angela. That is one of the best parts about church and having a community of people where we can hear the stories of the lives that have been transformed because of what God is doing inside of a church like Motion Church. And that's why we want to take the hill so that we can create more opportunity for people to have stories just like that, where they come from brokenness and there's hurt and there's stuff in their life that is holding them back. But when they walk into a place that we set for them, they're able to be set free and have freedom in their lives. And that's why we do what we do. Well, when you came in today, there's a book that's going to be on your seat. Go ahead and grab that. We'll look through it. And at this time, I'm actually going to ask our host to come forward. We have these things that we want to give every single person in here today. It is a Take the Hill bracelet that we want everyone to wear as you're considering, as you're praying, as we're doing everything that we're doing together as Take the Hill. But they're going to start passing those out. But it's very important that you take these books and you take these commitment cards, and we're asking that you guys join in and you pray with us. That you join in and you pray with us every single day. That God would speak to you and that He would challenge you to be a part of what God's going to do when it comes to take the hill. I know and I believe this 100%. If 100% of us join in on the vision of what God is doing on Take the Hill, we will take the hill. We will build a building. We will provide a place to see more and more stories like we just saw tonight with Angela of what God will do in the lives of our people. But I truly believe that it's going to take every single one of us. So please take this book with you. Take the card with you. Put it on your refrigerator and begin to pray and ask God, what will you have me give and be a part of? And I pray it's something scary that will be challenging for you so that God will be able to move in your life in a way that you've never seen before. And take these bracelets, and I pray that people will ask you questions. What is this bracelet about? Why do you have it? And that way you can share what we're doing in Bonney Lake and how God's going to use us to transform a city, just like He's already used us in downtown Puyallup, just like He's already used us on South Hill. He's given us opportunity to join in as a family, as a church, to make a difference in the people and the lives of our people. And this Wednesday, I want to invite you to our advanced commitment line. If you're ready to say yes, and this is what I want to give, come this Wednesday at 7 p.m. This is the place for you. We want to just give our cards this night. But at this time, we want to invite our pastor, Roger Archer, to the stage.
Hey, welcome to Motion Church. Are you glad you're in the house? Hey, I love our South Hill campus. The lives that are being touched up on that in that region, the stories coming off South Hill, like Angela's story. But you know, Tyler and Caitlin's on our worship team up there. Tyler and Caitlin give a wave up on South Hill. They're getting married on Monday. They found each other in the house, and they decided to do it right. Because how many know there's a right way to get married, right? And when you do things the right way, God just goes, we will take the hill. We will build a building. How many want the favor of God? Tyler and Caitlin's so proud of you guys. You guys are going to kill it. You're going to be amazing. You're not going to kill each other. You're going to kill it. Oh, you may want to kill each other, but that's just normal marriage stuff. So by show of hands, if you've ever talked into your smartphone to speak text, give me a wave. Yeah, I told you a couple weeks ago how I did that and got in trouble with, Yoel. If you're new, just, watch the podcast. But there's this other device in my house. And doesn't that Siri woman just want to just choke her out sometimes? I mean, hey Siri, hey Siri, hey Siri, hey Siri. Hey Siri, are you there? Hey Siri. Just like my wife at home. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just kidding. But in our house, she's gone, so I can say whatever I want. And if you give me up, I will get you. But we have this thing called Alexa, which is like the Amazon thing, that plays music in your house. And I get so mad at Siri. Hey Siri. Hey, welcome to Motion Hey Church. Siri. Glad you're in the house. I'm being nice. Hey, I don't understand. I love our South Hill campus. I'm being nice. Yeah, okay, that's typical. So I was in my house, and I was getting ready for my devotions and I was getting ready for my message for this weekend, and I was yelling at the little device on the counter. Hey Siri. Hey Siri, you dumb piece of hardware, what's wrong with you? And Tina walks in, she goes, what's wrong? I go, that's stupid Siri. She goes, oh no, that's Alexa. Because how many know there's a right way to get married? Have you ever been there? Right? Thinking like, I don't know what to do. Sometimes in life we don't know what to do. So when you don't know what to do, here's what you do. You go back to the very beginning. You go back to the basics. You go back to the fundamentals. You go back to the foundation. I think Tina just texted. She says, I'm watching. Have I mentioned to you how lovely my wife is and how much I love her? I told you a couple weeks ago how I don't you love technology? Sometimes. First and second, third timers, if you're here, would you give us a wave so we can welcome you proper up on South Hill? Come on, will you welcome people first, second, third time? Welcome, 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 welcome. Good to see you. Welcome, South Hill. I was watching it online as well. We're continuing our series entitled Set the Edge. Set the Edge. Now, God gave us a prophetic word this year to set the edge. And what that simply means, it's a football term where there are 11 players on the defensive side of the ball, and every one of them has a job to do. And the defensive ends have a job. It's called setting the edge. That means nothing gets around you. Because if you, as a defensive end, don't set a good edge, the person will get around you and they will score a touchdown, like the Huskies found out today. Have you been watching football and heard the announcers go, you got to set the... Have you heard that? I've been hearing that all the football games, like, yes, they're preaching my sermon. We have to set a very good edge to not let the enemy of our soul get around us. Because if the enemy of our soul gets around us, he will wreck your marriage, he will wreck your sexuality, he will wreck your joy quotient, he will wreck your career, he will wreck your sense of optimism. If you let the enemy of your soul get around you, you are going to have a hard time functioning at a high level. However, if you do a good job of setting the edge, if you get into the Word of God, if you get into that As It Is in Heaven worship album produced from Motion Church, if you get into the house of God, if you get into growth tracks, if you get into small groups, if you get into your prayer closet and you just get down on your knees before the Lord, that's how you set the edge in your life. It's how you do it. It's not complicated. It's just really hard. And how many times do we give up the edge? How many times do we give up the edge? And then what happens? Bad juju. Bad stuff happens when we don't set the edge. I want to talk to you tonight about two women that are Jews. They're Hebrew women, Jewish Hebrew women. Now, the nation of Israel, at one point in world history, was the global superpower. From the 11th century BC to the 6th century, for 500 years, the nation of Israel, no one messed with. Because they were the global superpower, because they set a good edge. They wouldn't let anything get around them. They committed their heart holistically to God. And there was a time when there was never famine, never hardship, never sadness, everybody was happy, because how many know that when you win, it's fun? When you're winning in life, life is good. But when you're losing in life, not so much. 500 years, global superpower, nation of Israel. But when you get to the 5th century BC, Israel started to lose because they left the edge vulnerable, and the enemy got around them, and they became defeated. And really, it went that way for about 2,300 years, until 1948, when Israel's nation was reborn. And that has a lot of ramifications to the second coming of Jesus Christ, which, by the way, we're going to get into the book of Revelation this next year in 2020, and we're going to break down the second coming of Jesus, how you can expect it, and how you can look for it, and how you can know it. It's going to be a pretty fun ride. Now, in 2019, right here, on this day, we're going to talk about two women that set the edge. Now, these two women were Hebrew women, and they were not living when Israel was doing good. They were living when Israel was not doing good. Now, they were separated by 550 years, twice the age of our nation times 2. These two biblical women were separated by 550 years. They were Hebrew women. They were Hebrew women that were widows. That's the bottom of the barrel. In this caste system, C-A-S-T-E, in this hierarchical system, if you're a Hebrew, you're at the bottom. If you're a woman, you're at the bottom. And if you're a widow, you're at the bottom of the bottom. These two Hebrew women were separated by 550 years. One was in the Old Testament, one was in the New Testament. And yet they had the same demography, they had the same experience. And God had asked them to do something sacrificial. May I just tell you, if you're going to set the edge in your life, it's going to be absolutely compulsory that you live a life of sacrifice. I don't know of any part-time Olympians. Do you know that Puyallup has an Olympian? Do you know Megan Kwan in 1998? She went, in 2000, she went to the Olympics. She's from Puyallup. And I got to talk with Megan when she was training. And we happened to be at Starbucks, at the drive-thru Starbucks. By the way, if you're watching online, Google Earth is your friend. So we were at the drive-thru Starbucks, and Starbucks opens at 5, and I was there at 4:45, and there was a car sitting next to mine, and I'm looking over like, oh, who are you two little girls in that car? And I thought, okay, this is kind of creepy. I'm looking, they're looking, and look away, but there's only two. And so we get out of our car when they turn the lights on, and we go in the door. And so I get a chance to strike up a conversation with Megan Kwan. And I said, so what you doing? She goes, I'm driving to Federal Way. Oh, really? Are you in high school? Yeah. Do you go to school in Federal Way? She goes, no. I go to school at Rogers High School. Well, why are you going to Federal Way at 5 o'clock in the morning? Oh, I'm going to Federal Way to train in the pool. She says, I swim 2 hours every day before school. I swim 2 hours every day after school. And I do that 5 days a week. Then on the weekends, I swim 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. And I'm in the pool all that time. She didn't really have a social life, Megan. She didn't have a pajama party at her house where the girls came over and did their hair and stuff. She didn't have a dating life. There was no margin for that. She sacrificed so much, but she knew what she was sacrificing for. And when she got that gold medal, all those pool hours became worth it. You see, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a person that does sacrificial things. I don't want sacrifice to be something that I do. I want sacrifice to be someone that I am. Do you understand the difference? Because you can fill out that little card and check the box, and we're going to sacrifice, we're going to take the hill, and yeah, I did my sacrificial duties, and now I can just go on and do whatever. No. God doesn't want you to do sacrificial things. God wants you to be a sacrificial being. See, this must be something, Pamela knows. This must be someone that we are, not something that we do. This thing called sacrifice. Now, there's a prophet by the name of Elijah. So we're going to look at the first woman first. That's kind of deep theologically. We'll look at the first one first. So we have to back up to this prophet by the name of Elijah. Let me give you some backstory. Elijah has just been successful. He's come off this incredible success of defeating 450. It was 450 to 1. Those are bad odds if you're in a fist fight. If you're in a fight for your life, they're even worse odds. 450 to 1, the false prophets of Baal against the one true prophet of the one true God. They're on Mount Carmel. That sounds yummy. Now, let me give you a little geography lesson. The nation of Israel is 90 miles long by 45 miles wide, basically Puyallup to Chehalis and North Bend to Puyallup. That's the whole nation of Israel. Elijah is up on Mount Carmel with a showdown. Showdown against the false prophets of Baal. And God does a miracle. Fire comes down, burns up the sacrifice on the altar, burns up the 12 stones that the sacrifice was on, laps up the water that was in the trench, and God did an amazing victory. But then Jezebel, isn't it funny how people that don't know the Bible know who Jezebel is? Oh, you Jezebel. And she's just that. So Jezebel was going to go kill Elijah because he killed all of her prophets. So he's running in the wilderness for his life, right? He goes down to Mount Sinai. So he's up here in Puyallup. He runs down to Chehalis and gets on the mountain, and God passes by, and he goes, Elijah, quit whining. Buck up. Stop being a wuss. Be a warrior. Don't be a wuss. Be a warrior. So he goes up on the mountain and goes, I'm going to pass by. And so there's this earthquake. God wasn't in the earthquake. There was a violent wind. God wasn't in the wind. There was a fire. God wasn't in the fire. But then there was a gentle whisper, and God was in the whisper. God speaks to Elijah and encourages him. Now, after that, he goes from Chehalis to Seattle. And it took him 45 days. And he goes to the village of Zarephath, which is out of the country of Israel. It's north of the border of Israel. But he's in this village of Zarephath, and there's an incredible drought. An incredible drought. We're going to pick up the story right now of reading about the woman from Zarephath that set the edge. He says, but after a while, the brook dried up, for there was no rainfall anywhere in the land. So Elijah had just come from defeating the prophets of Baal, going down and hearing the voice of God, and going up into the village of Zarephath, and there's a drought. Then the Lord said to Elijah, go and live in the village of Zarephath near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you. Here's what's crazy. God was talking to the widow woman, but the widow woman didn't know God was talking to her. Have you ever just felt like, God, why aren't you talking to me? Because sometimes we're going, la, 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 la. See, God had been instructing this widow woman, but she really, really doesn't know or recognize that it's been God that's been talking to her. So he went to Zarephath, and he arrived at the gates of the village, and he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, would you please bring me a little water in a cup? Now, mind you, if you're in a desert, arid region, we don't get that too much here in Puyallup, the understanding of the essentials of water, because we get plenty. More than we want. Would you give me a little cup of water? And here's this Hebrew woman, widow, who's gathering sticks, and she hears this man that she does not know asking her for a cup of water. They were in the midst of a drought. He might as well have been asking her for gold. He could have said, hey, could you just bring me an ingot of gold? No, while you're at it, bring me a pallet. Bring me a pallet of gold. Like, I'm a widow woman in Hebrew land. I don't got any gold. She goes after the water. Now, as she was going to get it, he called to her. So he's about to double down. He's about to double down. That's a gambling term. You Christians wouldn't know anything about that. Because then he says, bring me a bite of bread too. Make it Italian herb and cheddar and footlong and everything on it with extra pickles and tomatoes, please. But she said, I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in my house. And I only have a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. Now here was, have you ever had a to-do list, like your regiment for the day? Here is her to-do list. She said, I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then me and my son will die. To do, check. Can you imagine being in such a position where there is no social program, there's no social security, there's no government aid, there's no man to help you, nobody's going to help you, and it's dawned on her that her last task that she's going to do is gather a few sticks around the city, build a little fire, put this flour and this oil in a little cake, and make this little bit of bread for her and her son to eat, and then they're going to die. Was she making excuses, or was she being legit? She was being legit. But Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you've said. Okay. But, hey, listen to this conjunction. But make a little bread for me first. You pig. And then listen to what he says. And then use what's left over to prepare a meal for you and for your son. Was Elijah being selfish? Was he being narcissistic? Was he being kind of like a self-centered, egomaniac male walking in, strutting like a rooster because I'm the man and you're a woman? I don't care if you and your son die, but go ahead and make for me first. No. It was not about Elijah eating first. It was not about him not caring that they didn't have something. This was the station and the lane that God was moving this woman toward so that she would live a life of sacrifice, which is driven by a life of faith. Because you see, without faith, it's utterly impossible to please God. If I'm her, I'm like, excuse me? You first? That's my thought on the subject. Elijah. But we have verse 14. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Now check this out. There will always, everyone say the word always. Wouldn't that be cool if you didn't ever have to go to Winco ever again? If your just pantry was just stocked, you just took a loaf of bread out, took a piece of bread out, and it's just replenished. If you just had all your staples, you never had to go buy salt, just it's always there. If you never had to go buy mayonnaise or ketchup or mustard, it's always full. Here's what he says: there will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again. So she literally came to a crossroads of decision. Do I live by what God has said, or do I live by what I see? Because here's this woman gathering sticks to prepare the Last Supper for she and her son. And Elijah just throws her this wicked curveball. Go ahead, do what you're going to do. Make it for the man of God first. And then if you'll put God, because he wasn't so concerned about himself. He had just come from this great victory. He had just been fed by ravens. For God's sake, he was in the wilderness. Ravens came and brought him bread. He wasn't so concerned about his stomach. He was concerned about her spirit. See, if you take care of the things of God first, God will take care of the world things in your world forever. He was trying to instruct her. Look at what it says. So she did what Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family, get this, not just her son, her family continued to eat for many days from a handful of flour and a scrap of oil. Now, I want us all from South Hill, from online and downtown, I want us to read verse 16 together. Ready? Here we go. There was always, okay, not there? Is it up now? What are we waiting for? Okay, here we go. Ready? Here we go. There was always enough flour and olive oil left in the containers, just as the Lord had promised through Elijah. He's the God of more than enough. You put God in first seat, you put God in first priority, you will not have to worry about how many friends you have. You'll have more than enough. You put God first, you don't have to worry about how you make rent. God will take care of rent. You put God first, you're not going to have to worry about how much food you got in the pantry. God will give you more than enough. You put God first, you're not going to worry about how you fix your car. God's going to take care of that. You see, he's the God of more than enough. His name is Jehovah Jireh, the great provider. And when we begin to put God in first position, he's the God of more than enough. That's the woman of Zarephath. Now, let's fast forward, shall we, 5 centuries. Jesus is teaching in the temple. He's down in Jerusalem, southern part of the nation. Down here, the southern part of the nation, in a white-collar community where education and commerce is thriving. And he goes to the temple, and he watched the rich people dropping their coins in the collection box. Then a poor widow, here she is again. She's showing up in the Bible. This poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. He said, I tell you the truth, Jesus said, this poor widow has given more than the rest of them. For they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she has. Take the hill? Yeah. You bet. You bet. All of us? You bet. You see, there are a few things that we can learn from the Zarephath woman and from the temple of Jerusalem woman, these widow Hebrew women at the bottom of the food chain that were cared for by God. Here's the first thing I want you to jot down when it comes to living a life of sacrifice. Know this. First, God sees what man overlooks. Okay, now I want you to think with me. Think with me. God sees what humanity overlooks. Have you ever had someone not notice the good thing you did? And he's like, don't you see how I'm folding your laundry? You man, you. It matters. It's hard work. Don't you see I'm working 55 hours a week, woman, taking care of me? Don't you care? Say thank you. Don't you see that I moved the grass, Dad? I did a good job. Say something. Right? Have you ever noticed when you do things and people don't notice it? It's kind of like, what is wrong with you? I'm doing a good job. You need to step up and say something kind. There are things in our life that people, quite frankly, are never going to acknowledge or sometimes not even notice. But can I promise you this? That God sees it all. 1 Chronicles 16:19 says, the eyes of the Lord roam to and fro across the face of the earth, seeking to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. I remember the first time I got held accountable for my actions on the football field. I was a sophomore playing on a state championship team, and there were only 2 other sophomores other than me, and I played the starting receiver, and I was outside, and we were playing our state rivals in just kind of a season game. It wasn't mission critical for state or anything like that. It was just a game. And I had the responsibility to block the defensive back, to screen him out, and so that our running back could make the seam and make the first down. We needed 1 yard. It was 4th and 1. We were going for it. We did this toss sweep, and I was blocking, and my guy made the tackle and stopped him. And my coach grabbed my, how many of you know that football has changed a little in the last 30 years? You see, my football coach could pull up his socks without bending over. He was a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal. He chewed Copenhagen mixed with brandy. I think he only knew the F word. He used it like how some artists work in oils and paint. That's how he used profanity with the F word. He was 6'5", 300 pounds. I thought he was always wearing a sweater because the hair on his chest and his back and his neck was just sticking out. Are you wearing a sweater? No, it's just my body hair. Huh. That great big man, came and grabbed my face mask and pulled my helmet into his head, splitting his skull so blood was falling into his face. And he began to correct me with his colorful language, spitting brandy and Copenhagen into my face with blood mixed in for measure. And I said, Coach, I didn't miss my block. I locked him up. I did a good job. Why are you so mad? And you don't argue with a gorilla that weighs 350 pounds. You don't win. And here's what he said. We'll see on film on Monday. So we're sitting in the film room. Now, these are the olden days. Now, there's digital film now. It's really cool. But we had these reel-to-reel 16-millimeter things, and they had this clicker, right? And the film would go, and when they wanted to rewind it, and they'd go front and back and front, and we sat for at least 20 minutes while my coach painted the air blue with his colorful language, exposing the fact that I missed the block and cost us the game, and he was right. And our whole team, all 100 people on our football team saw me miss the block. And here's what my coach said that I can tell you. The eye in the sky don't lie. That film guy captured all my wrongdoings. Can I just tell you, the Lord doesn't miss anything. He doesn't miss anything. He's watching this widow woman at the temple dropping in his copper pennies, and people were blowing by her. Oh, you stinky little old widow woman, just put your 2 little coins in and don't make a big deal because I got a wad of cash. God didn't miss it. God didn't miss the things that you've been doing. God didn't miss one of the tithe checks you wrote. God didn't miss one of the kind acts of service you did. God hasn't missed one of the things that you did by way of forgiving someone that didn't deserve it. God didn't miss one of the acts of generosity that you did towards someone that you thought no one saw. Can I just tell you, God has a very good accounting pencil, and he doesn't miss a thing. His books and his ledgers are always matching up perfectly. Number 2, note this down. That God's valuation is different than man's. We value these things and we say, well, this means a lot. And I wonder if we could ever look behind the veil and get behind the Wizard of Oz curtain and pull that thing back. I wonder how differently God would evaluate and measure things differently than how we do. See, the difference is proportion. Because the rich people were giving large sums, but they still retained their fortunes. But this widow put in everything she had to live on. And that's why Jesus said, this woman has given more than them all. Do you think God is wringing his hands up in heaven? God, Jehovah, God, the great creator going, oh, myself, oh, myself, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, myself. I hope Roger tithes, otherwise, how will we ever make the mortgage at Motion? God is not freaking out. God does not need our money. God just goes boom, boom, boom. Rocks turn into water. Bread, rocks turn into bread. Water, stop. We're going to dry ground, walk across. God is a miracle-working God. He is not pensive, nervous, or freaked out about where we might be falling short in taking the hill or giving our card or giving our sacrifice. He is not freaked out. Just like the woman at Zarephath, Elijah didn't need her food, but she needed her faith. Elijah didn't need her food, but she needed her faith. And don't you know that God is bringing all of us into this valley of decision where we come to the road, hey, yeah, go ahead and, gather that and make that thing that you're going to do. Go ahead and, go get that six-figure income and get that degree and go ahead and get that promotion. Yeah, go do that, but give me mine first. We come to the same valley of decision as the woman of Zarephath. We come to the same temple gate when people are dropping money into the box. What are we doing that is sacrificial for God? And it's not about economics. It's not about decimal point and dollar signs. It's not. Alex Damari, South Campus pastor, knows that. It's not about that. What's it about? It's about our understanding that nothing we have belongs to us. It all belongs to God, and we're just watching his stuff. Because if you think that stuff is yours, you're kidding yourself. If you think you've pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps, like my coach, who could literally do that, you're kidding yourself. Every good thing you have is from God. Everything. Everything that is good is from God, period, end of story. I love one of the stories I heard about, it's not in my notes, but it just came to me. You guys will love this up at South Hill, too. In Bonney Lake, there's this guy who just doesn't have extra at all to give to take the hill. He goes, I want to do it, and I can't do it. And here's what he said, but I had an idea from God. I said, what was the idea? He goes, I'm going to all these houses door to door in my neighborhood, and I'm telling them that I'll come rake their leaves, and I'll clean up all the stuff around their house, and all the money's going to go to our Bonney Lake campus, right past Costco. And if they'll just give me money, I'll work hard in their yard and make it look nice. And everything's going to go to Motion Church. And if you don't want to give anything, I'll still do it. Do you know what that is? That's living a life of sacrifice. That's not making a sacrifice. That's living a life of sacrifice. Third and finally, here's what we can get. God commends giving in faith. God commends giving in faith. God commends it. When you give in faith, God is commending that generosity. When you give in faith, God is going, that's my kid, so proud of you. That woman that was giving in faith, she had, the Bible calls it mites, M-I-T-Es. They're the equivalent of 2 Roman copper pennies. Everything she had. Boom, in the box. Boom, 10%, whatever shall I do? Forget about that. Here's everything I've got. See, Luke 6, Jesus is talking. And here's what he says. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. When you give, it will be given to you proportionally. Are you giving out of your overflow, or are you giving sacrificially? I know what I'm doing. I'm scared to death. Tina's terrified. I'm getting closer to retirement. It doesn't matter. We might just hit the reset button. It doesn't matter. Because I'm like the woman at Zarephath. I get it. I get it. I was at Minchie's in Lakeland Hills, and I was getting my frozen yogurt. Now, maybe you're way too cultured and civilized for this, but whenever I get my yogurt, I bang it on the counter so that yogurt settles down into the cup for the purpose of being able to put more in it. If you're with me, give me a wave. You understand? You ever see people do that? Like, you piglet, just get. It was kind of funny because this little girl, seriously, it's so funny. I hope they don't go to our church. No, I'm serious because I'm gonna throw them straight under the bus. So this little girl, she goes, "Mommy, why is he doing that?" Like just annoying loud. Why is he doing that? Like, yeah, put me on blast, you little 9-year-old, whatever. I'm looking around like I'm begging this guy on the counter trying to get this thing back down in there. Why is he doing that? And her mom was kind of condescending. She's like, I can tell where your daughter got that. So she looks over at me and she goes, so he can get more in the container. To which the little girl said, why doesn't he get a bigger cup? I'm minding my own darn business getting my Minchies. And I'm feeling yogurt shamed. Craziness. And the mom says, while she's looking at me, talking over the top of her daughter, that's the biggest cup they got. That's how God does it with faith. When See, Matthew 6:33 tells us very plainly. He says, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be given to you. I don't want to do sacrificial things for God. I just want to be a sacrifice for God. I want every bit of my life to be a sacrifice for God. You see, Jesus, we have a mic here. I think we do. Thanks, Hans. Jesus was, he was the Son of the living God. And he gave everything. He didn't hold anything back. The Bible calls him a man of sorrows. Because he said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I've longed to gather you under my wings as a chick is gathered by her mother. But you wouldn't let me. Oh, Jerusalem." He was the man of sorrow, the Lamb of God, by his own betrayed. The sin of man and wrath of God has been on Jesus laid. Silent as he stood accused, beaten, mocked, and scorned, bowing to the Father's will, he took a crown of thorns. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where is love
of heaven, God's own Son, to purchase and redeem and reconcile the very ones who nailed him to that tree. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation. Where is love poured out over me? And now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. Yeah. Praise and honor unto thee. Could you bow your head and close your eyes for the Lord? See, Jesus is the man of sorrow because he wanted so desperately for his people to get it, and they couldn't get it. But the reason why they couldn't get it is because they wouldn't get it. They didn't want to sacrifice. They didn't want to live a life of sacrifice. So Jesus, he paid a debt that he didn't owe because we owed a debt we couldn't pay. He became our sacrifice. What is Jesus asking you to sacrifice? What is Jesus asking you to sacrifice? You see, tonight, the Spirit of the living God is on our South Hill campus, and he's at our downtown campus, and he's online watching with our family. He paid everything that you ever need paid, baby. It's written. He picked up the check in complete totality. He was the man of sorrow, became our sin. Now, I don't know about you, but if I pay that kind of price, I want some ROI, man. I want return on my investment. But Jesus gives us a free will. And he says, I hope you pick me. I hope you pick me. Spirit of the living God is on our South Hill campus and downtown campus. He's with our online people and our homes and on military bases all over the world. Does Jesus live inside of you or just beside you? He wants to live inside. He's the man of sorrow that paid for it. Paid for that residency of God inside. Tonight, you're going to lay your head on a pillow. You're going to pull your blankie under your chin, and you're going to go to sleep. The question is, are you going to go to sleep with anxiety, or are you going to go to sleep with peace? Jesus lives on the inside. You'll know peace. Jesus lives on the outside. You ain't going to have no peace. So I want to help you get there from here. Very simply, if you want to give your life to Jesus, you want to say yes to him. I very simply just want you to put your hand up into the air and say, Pastor, pray for me. Here's my hand. I want to give my life to God. It'll be the greatest, scariest, most awesome move of your life. Ready for the count of 3, from the front to the back, from the side to the side. Online, South Hill, downtown. Here comes that count. 1, 2, 3. Put your hand high into the air and say, here I am. Yes, yes. Can you welcome people giving their life to Jesus? Come on. Let's welcome people giving their life to Jesus. Welcome to the family of God. Let's pray this out loud together so no one is singled out or feeling isolated or spotlighted. Let's just pray this together. Say, dear Lord Jesus, come live inside of me. Forgive me of my sin. Thank you for my new life. It starts today. I pray, great God, that you will help me sleep sweet tonight because of my commitment to you. With your head bowed and eyes closed, second question.
Is God calling you to sacrifice? Hey, it's great that you fill out a card, and don't get me wrong, I really hope you do. But what I care about more is not that you bring a card to the altar. I really want you to bring your life to the altar. I want you to become a living sacrifice. Dying is easy, living is harder. But if you will become a living sacrifice, if you will become like the woman at Zarephath, if you will become like the woman at the temple, if you will become open-handed and trusting with everything and sacrifice, there will be a fountain of favor that will find you. I'd like to invite everybody to stand. Go ahead and stand all across our campuses. There's a sweet spirit downtown in our downtown campus, and I can just sense it. I really feel there's that sweet spirit at our Southfield campus as well. I just sense in our online community, people are like, mascara's getting wrecked. Could we just keep it real? Come on. We are all so jacked up. We are all so broken that we need the power of the cross, the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of the blood of Jesus. That's what we need. That's all we need. Can we just sing that song out and worship to the Lord with our hands lifted high? Come on, let's do that right now.